Hello, dear listeners. This is Ivona Remundová again from True Story podcast, powered by Institute of Documentary Film in Prague. Today, I'm having a special guest from Poland, Aneta Ptak. Hello.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me.
And we are talking on the EastDoc platform today from the French Institute in Prague, because this week we are having many special guests. So hello from EastDoc platform from Prague, EastDoc platform 2024. Anetka, you are coming here to EastDoc platform with your newest project, Birdie. Take us into the project and how it all started for you.
I would trace the beginning of working on this movie to the times when I was a teenager, when I got a camera, my first camera from my father. My dad was a cinematographer, and he always used to film us. Actually, he mainly filmed us. Our main way of interacting with him was through being an object that he was filming, and it not always happened. So then when I got my own camera, I finally could just film myself and be independent in this way. So I was just, living with a camera by my side and documenting my life until the moment when I realized that that something wrong must have happened, because my life went completely nuts. And exactly what happened was that my father died, and my marriage started collapsing exactly at the same point. I was living in US, and I got back to Poland for the funeral. I buried my father, and I never had the energy to go back to US and continue with the life that I left there. And that was also the moment when I started looking back at the footage that I have, and then looking back at the past. And that was also the moment when I started realizing what has really happened. And what really happened was that I unknowingly became a wife of a cult leader. And I guess that the death of my father marked the moment of me leaving the cult, emancipating myself from the spell of a guru, of a shaman, under which I was for years, and also creation of the movie.
Seems to me like we may be the same age, almost. I'm 1983.
I'm 84.
Yeah. And even if we are from different countries, I'm from Czech Republic and you're from Poland, I guess that there may be some similarity. So let's go back to the very beginnings of our raising and growing. What has influenced you being a girl in Poland in 80s and 90s?
Well, actually, I have been re-examining this subject and thinking about this subject a lot during the past few years, because 4 years ago, I started trauma therapy because I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And the first thing that you do when you start a therapy, you go back to childhood, right? I wanted to answer the question, why the heck did I end up in a cult? Why the heck did I ended up as a wife of a cult leader? This is crazy.
When did it happen?
When did it happen? How could this have happened, right? So that was going back to childhood and just trying to understand why. So firstly, more or less at the time, when I was a kid, it was pretty common. There was a saying in Polish, dzieci ryby głosu nie mają, which means kids and fish have no voice, which I guess, I don't know, but does it sound familiar?
I remember something like dzieci nemají rozum, which means kids don't have a clue, don't have a clue, or kids are not reasonable, something like that.
Yeah. And but the meaning is basically almost the same, right? So I don't ever remember anyone asking me what I think about something. What do I feel? What do I want? What do I want to do with my life? I was never asked these questions. And I remember when I was 25, I finished my first studies. I was studying on Academy of Fine Arts. I just didn't know what to do with myself. But I never had the practice of asking myself or being asked, what do you want to do? What do you really want to do?
Because they may have been some expectations from the society, from family. That's what I remember, that it was almost clear that the goal is to be a good girl,
Of course.
To good wife one day.
Of course.
To have children.
Sacrifice yourself for the benefit of others.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what you had to do. You had to be nice, agree with everything, never say no, feel privileged when somebody of a higher authority than you is paying attention to you. And then also you have to prove yourself. You have to achieve something in order for others to even want to listen to you. I guess that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
I remember these feelings, if I can deserve attention of my father or men in general, I should really hard work on it. So not to be bold, that's first thing. To be really nice, as you said. Be nice. Be nice.
Be nice. Yeah. Be sweet.
Be sweet. So we are sweet.
Are we? I hope. I hope less and less
Less
with
and
time.
less. We can afford to be sweet to each other, but to the outside world, it causes then troubles, and it led you, I imagine, to big troubles.
Yes, definitely. I didn't know how to say no. And that was a freaking big problem. When you have a girl, I mean, I was 25 when this whole cult situation started. I know I was an adult, but when I look at people who are Gen Z right now, they are way more mature than I am. I'm sorry, maybe not than I am, but so when I look at Gen Z, they're way more mature than I was when I was 25. And it took me, I'm almost 40, and I learned how to say no a couple of years ago, and that's freaking terrifying. And I complained to my therapist. I say, how the heck is that possible? I'm almost 40, and I didn't know how to say no for so many years. And then I also didn't know how to speak my mind. Because I guess that the fact that I'm making this movie, I know that I'm doing it as an act of rebellion against myself from the past, and against the rules of be nice, don't say anything, don't cause trouble, don't doubt authorities. And another thing, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you think, what you feel, and what you have to say. And my answer is, you know what? I don't care if nobody cares, because when I want to speak, I'm going to speak. And there's still a lot of doubt, of course. But I guess that at this point, for me, the urge to really execute the freedom of saying what I want to say, or saying what I feel and how I felt, and to speak about feelings, this is something that is, the subject of feelings is actually avoided many times, right? Then I just have this enjoyment of allowing myself to talk about my feelings and my vulnerable parts. And I don't want to pretend that I'm something which I'm not. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. We are talking now about aspects of the social, cultural behavior around us when we are growing up. Have you ever questioned what are the causes or what are the reasons why this was happening? I mean, historically in both of our countries, or I would say most post-Soviet countries.
Yeah.
Could be something similar.
Yes. I would probably say that because I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, I kind of learned more about trauma, but also generational trauma. And getting to know the history of my family and everything that happened to my mom, especially, I'm speaking right now, especially about the female lineage, how my mom was raised, what happened to her, how her parents were. So my grandparents, they remember war. This is crazy. It haunts you and it marks you until the end of your life. But then I don't want to say that a person that experienced trauma is doomed, because the magical thing of our times, in our times, is that there's all of this science behind healing traumas. And I know myself that it is doable. And it's actually magical what certain methods of work can do with your mind, with your nervous system, with your brain. and with the way that you react and interact with the world to improve it. So I was talking to my friend the other day, and I told her that I guess that everybody in Poland should get trauma therapy financed by the government, and we will all be happier, healthier people. And we really do not need to suffer. There are ways to make peace with the past, even the most terrible past. There are ways to make peace with it. And truth to tell, when I learned the full story of my mom and what she had to go through, and learning how sexual abuse was present in my family, but then also, as we know, during the war, just knowing that, I'm like not surprised that I had to go through certain things, that I had to experience sexual abuse myself, because I was never trained to defend myself against it.
To protect yourself.
To protect myself against it, because my mom was never trained to protect herself against it. Her mother did not train her. And, you know, you could trace it back into the generations.
We were talking about the historical and cultural influences on how vulnerable and traumatized we are. How did it shape us to live in countries like Poland or Czechoslovakia or many other countries in our region?
There's one other thing that I discovered, a trait, a conviction that my mom passed on to me. It is, no matter how hard things are, you have to survive. But it's not inviting you for changing the situation in which you're in. It's not inviting you to be active. It's not, there is a situation, there is a problem, try to solve it. No. It's like, stay in it. Keep strong, but in a negative sense. Like, keep strong. That's why, you know, I was in an abusive marriage, and I didn't leave it for many years because I thought that my mission, my goal is to survive. And is life about surviving? You know, that's the question. Are we living in peaceful times, or are we living in the times of war? It's like you have this war in the back of your head all the time. You're always on war. You have to freaking survive, no matter what. But then the survival mode, it also means like you have no agency over the reality that you're in. You don't try to shape your life. You are, you know, on a survival mode. This is crazy. This is really, really crazy. It needs to be eradicated from our minds.
I agree.
Right?
A good moderator should not say this sentence, but I agree, I have to say. Your film follows a story of you leaving Poland and finding a new life there. Can you give us a bit of this part of the story?
Yeah, you are asking me how was my life in the cult?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But I try to do it very carefully so you can say whatever you want to share.
Okay, life in the cult. The beginnings were amazing, as you can imagine, because it's always this way.
I cannot imagine.
Oh,
Tell
you
me,
cannot imagine.
how amazing it was.
Well, for me, it started with my first ayahuasca ceremony. I was 25. I just finished studies. I didn't know what to do with my life. I did not have too many people back then to talk to me. I felt like I needed guidance and support at that moment. And you probably know, when you're looking for somebody to tell you how to live your life, you're gonna always find this person.
Somebody will
find you.
Yeah, there is a miracle that somebody just pops up, right?
Yes. There's so many people who just love doing that, telling others how to live their lives. Yeah. So I found one, unsurprisingly. It was a little crazy because that was 2009, January. Ayahuasca was not that famous back then. This shaman who was facilitating the so-called ceremony, he was one of the very few that was going to Poland back then. We didn't know much about ayahuasca, about hallucinogenic plants, about these traditions, how it works, what it does, so on and so forth. I only heard that it could help me with my depression. Honestly, I should have went to a psychiatrist and just get antidepressive pills. But for some reason, back then, going to the shrink and taking antidepressants was stigmatized. So I felt, okay, why shouldn't I just go meet a shaman and get ayahuasca instead?
For any listeners who are listening to us and never heard of ayahuasca, what it is?
Ayahuasca is a brew originating from Amazon jungle. It is made from combination of different plants, but in general, it should be chacruna leaves and ayahuasca vines. It is a hallucinogenic drink. Some people call it entheogen, which means a drink which helps you connect with the divine. It is called the wine of the soul. There's a lot of poetic names to it. Yes. The one thing that it does, it really balances your serotonin levels. And it did balance my serotonin levels for a couple of months, just this one ceremony. So I felt like, wow, this is a cure, for all my life problems back then. But I was not realizing one thing, that in the package, the ayahuasca package, there's also the shaman that comes in the package, Shaman is the bonus. If you take ayahuasca, you also have to take the shaman. So there's also another layer to that. Just being in touch with something new and exotic gives a lot of space for abuse. Imagine if you are in church during a confession and the priest tells you, in order to heal you, Holy Spirit is telling me that I need to touch your boobs or touch you in an intimate place just because God wants that. Would you agree? Would you agree
Because it heals you.
Yeah, but would you agree? You would not agree to that because it is part of your culture. You already know that the priest is not supposed to, is crossing the boundaries. A kid probably would. But as a grown-up woman, you would feel that something is weird. But when you have a guy from somewhere, from some exotic place, dressed in funky clothes, and he tells you that, right now I'm healing you from depression, but also the spirit, is asking me to touch you in an intimate place, or you need a sexual healing or whatever.
I've heard that some of them are asking, like, you need to undress, so, the spirit gets closer to you, to your body.
Yeah. And just because it's exotic, you kind of feel like, yes, our culture is so oppressive. Let me just get undressed. Because, our culture at the same time, it's a little bit tricky because it is supposed to protect us. And in many cases, it does protect us. In many cases, it oppresses us. We are always balancing on this thin line where we need to be really aware of the world that we live in and what it is, our agreements that we have, right, with the world. But when I was 25 and all of these things were happening, I was like, I want to be freaking healed. I don't give a damn what it takes. And I was just not aware. I was just not aware of my own boundaries even. So this is when it all opened up a space for a lot of abuse. So there's another thing, I don't want to condemn ayahuasca as a tool, but it's a tool. And it can be used and misused. And unfortunately, in our culture, we're not aware of how it works, what it does to our mind. And, before the first ceremony, we don't really know what's going to happen.
Aneta Ptak graduated from the Faculty of Multimedia Communication at the Academy of Fine Arts in Poznań, Poland in 2010. She exhibited her short films, video art installations and performances in museums and galleries across Europe, including the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw, Poland 2009, Platform Gallery in Vaasa, Finland in 2009, and the Ujazdowski Castle Center for Contemporary Art in Warsaw, Poland in 2010. Her experimental short films have been screened at international festivals in Poland and other European countries. In 2010, she received a grant from the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage of Poland. Currently, she is a PhD student at the National Film School in Łódź, Poland. Since 2017, she has been working as a movie post-production specialist. Currently, she is developing her new project, Birdie, at the Ex Oriente Film workshop by the Institute of Documentary Film in Prague.
Maybe another thing about ayahuasca is that since it's a brew, so it's a liquid that you drink, you never know what's in it because there's a lot of different combinations of plants that can be put inside of it. Sometimes shaman would add different plants to make them even harder, or let's say the vision's stronger. And for some people whose nervous system is very sensitive, it may be really terrible. I know people who ended up in psychiatric hospital because the experience was just too strong for them to handle. You never know who's giving it to you, if they know what they are giving to you. We should not trust, really, other people, unless there is somebody that you can trust, that you can really, really trust, and not because you went to few lectures by the person and my feeling about them is okay. When you drink ayahuasca, your feeling about everybody might be okay. But later on you will figure out that things are not really this way. It's really tricky. It's really, really tricky. There are also other hallucinogenic plants like peyote or mushrooms. If somebody really wants to have a transcendental experience and you really know what you're taking, or you picked up those mushrooms yourself and you take very small dose in the beginning, you're just being very mindful, and you have a person that you trust, that you really trust. I mean, really, you know them for many, many years, that can take care of you. I guess that's okay.
That's what I wanted to ask you, because I guess that we can say that we are living in the age of a boom of psychedelic substances used also by Western psychiatrists and psychologists. So what in your imagination is the safe space and safe conditions to use them?
I told my therapist that if she would be giving psychedelics during the sessions, I would take them. I would not take them from anybody else because I have worked with her for years already. I trust her, but she's not going to brainwash me because I was brainwashed while being under the influence of a hallucinogenic plant. This is really intense. This is really freaking intense. So this is another thing. You have a psychiatrist or a therapist has a supervisor and has to be trained, and there are rules that I have to follow. A shaman does not have the rules that I have to follow. I'm sorry. There's so many shaman lovers there who are probably listening to this, but I don't care.
Yeah, but they should get supervisors.
Of course.
It's not a joke.
Of course.
There should be always somebody who is like taking care of the person and controlling a bit of the person who is taking care of the others, right?
Of course. Of course. It's the most important thing because there's a huge space of abuse. I don't know if you know, but it's very common, the sexual abuse done by shamans to the, patients or clients. I don't know how to say it, but it's very common. It's very, very common. When you are under the influence and you don't feel your body, when a shaman rapes you, you don't really connect the dots. And I know it from my own experience. You do not connect the dots. And it may be a while before you connect the dots. So, during these 6 years while I was there, I was almost always under the influence because we had these ceremonies 2 times a week. Sometimes I had a break for a month, but it's like a prison camp. You have not much contact with the world around you. You do not curate your own world, the people that you meet. You do not verify. I think I didn't answer your question. What was the question again?
You did. You did answer the question. But you add something really interesting. You are talking about how deep and strong is the manipulation and how hard it is to jump out of it. So in your story, another really hard thing helped you to jump out from this reality, and that was the death of your father.
Yeah, that was a shock, but it began a process. I got back to Poland. I could not stand my own thoughts and feelings, and I thought that I'm gonna just throw myself into different activities. I started my PhD studies on Łódź Film School, but then I figured out that I still have some free time. So I decided that I will start studying directing simultaneously. Then I had no time at all for myself. But then before that, I started working on this movie. So it's a many years long process. First, I wanted to make a movie about my father, like a tribute to him. But then it started changing, evolution of it began, and I realized that my material is really leading me somewhere else. There's a different story that needs to be told, and I have deep gratitude to my dad. It was really hard to be his daughter. He was a very strong personality, extremely strong. It was very hard to live in his shadow, and I did not have the guts. I did not have the balls to be a filmmaker before he died. I felt like I would just always be compared with him, or I would have to prove myself, and I did not believe in myself. So I guess that when he died, I just thought, I guess there is something that I want to say, and it's probably more important than proving myself or being good, You just
Being successful.
Or being freaking successful, or whatever, however you call it, the good. It's like when you want to say something, you just go for it, say it, and that's it, right? It's kind of a simple thing. And this whole idea of how you want to present yourself to the world is a little bit confusing. Yes. And just forgetting about it and, okay, this is what happened. This is where I am. This is what I stand for.
Would you agree with me that art is the best therapy?
Yes, definitely. My mom told me some time ago that of course, sales agents and all the people that I'm going to meet in the next few days, they're not going to agree with me. But the artist, the creator, is the person that gets the most from the creative act. But it's also a tough question, because it feels sometimes like a curse.
That you cannot choose now, that you have to finish the movie. Or do you?
I'm curious what it's going to be like, I guess. That's why I will finish it. Because, yeah, I just want to see what's there. It's, what's really fabulous? When you are able to look at yourself and forget that this is you. When you're able to look at your life story and forget that this is you. This is a psychedelic experience without psychedelics.
Okay, I'm not there yet. I need you to be my teacher.
You can try. Go for it.
It's amazing. I'm always scared that I will be looking like narcissistic personality if I'm making films or things about myself. Do you have this these feelings too sometimes?
Of course. That's why I started in 2016. And I'm still in the process, because I did, for the first few years, I did everything not to talk about myself. And then I was told by other people, you know what, just give up, okay? I mean, by other people, but then how to say it, my inner voice as well. Because it's like, I don't want it to sound like somebody's telling me that I have to do it this way. No. It's like, okay, I received a lot of encouragement. And I felt like, yeah, okay, this is, because the creative process is a journey. And you direct it to a certain extent, and so to a certain extent, it pulls you into places. And it is really fascinating. And I guess that we need to, I don't know if we need to, but if we have a chance to allow ourselves to be pulled into a no man's land or into a completely new territory, that it is an opportunity, even if it feels scary. You know what I'm trying to say? This is a freaking scary process, because you started and you freaking never know how it's gonna end, and you are not you are not the decision maker. To a certain extent, in certain aspects, yes, you kind of curate it, but this process is really taking you for a ride. It's taking you for a ride. It's like you're not doing the film is doing you. So it's crazy. It's really crazy. That's why I don't take psychedelics anymore. I think I don't need them. for that reason.
Film as a psychedelic experience. I know what you mean. So you came back to Poland, you buried your father, and you continued film yourself and film your life and film your path. Do you still remember what it looked like, what it felt like when you realized, I'm never coming back to that person and I need to heal from that experience?
This moment was when, after 10 years, I admitted, I actually know it was a different thing. I decided to tell my therapist a story, not a story, but I decided to tell her what happened in 2010 in a basement of a New York house. And I told her with all the details because I remember the details very well. And she told me, you know that was rape. You know that there's a paragraph for that. And it is a bit paranoid and absurd that it's really so hard to admit that certain things really happened. It's so freaking hard, you know, and creating your own version of your own life, creating your own version of story, your own history. It's way easier than we think. It's really hard to admit in front of yourself that you allowed this to happen. So I guess that was the first moment that I had to face. I started EMDR therapy, and it took me a year. I don't know if you know how this therapy works.
I've heard of EMDR therapy, but please explain our listeners what it is, because it's such an amazing thing.
Yes. I would be very happy to explain it. So, okay, just for the record, I'm not a scientist, and I may confuse certain terms, okay? I will just please listen to this as a first-person experience more than
the expert explanation.
The expert explanation. If you need more data, just check Google, okay? But in general, so trauma is the experience that was not processed by the frontal cortex. Yes, these are the frontal parts of your brain, which are there to process the information, but they also are there to draw conclusions. They are there to categorize experience based on their functionality, let's say, in your life. And trauma is the experience which was not processed. It was not categorized. And
so it's like hanging there and
yes,
poisoning your life.
Yes, because it's the memory is kept in a completely different part of your brain, which has to do with survival. So it's like, okay, this terrible thing happened. I need to do everything in my life to avoid it. Let's say, because there's part of us which is more like animalistic, survival part, right? It has to do with the first instinct, like when you are, for example, when you are faced with an aggressor. There's three ways that you can react to it: fight, flight, or faint, or
freeze.
Yeah, that's a freeze. Yeah, and this is not your. I mean, that's not your conscious brain which is deciding. This is a matter of seconds. How you're going to react, you don't know. It's your mind is just very, very quickly analyzing the data. Do I have the capacity to fight? Do I have the capacity to flight? To
run?
To run. If not, you're going to freeze. That's it. That's very simple. So EMDR therapy is dealing with these traumatic memories. So when flashbacks come, when you experience flashbacks, this is the moment when your brain is so heavily loaded with all this data, because there is a lot of data. You remember every single freaking detail of the situation. Like
the smell, the color of the painting in the room, everything.
Everything. Yes. And you can just at a snap of your fingers, you can remember it, right? This is a lot of data, and your brain, in order to keep it needs to use a lot of power. That's why all the symptoms of PTSD. That's why you there's all these little things. Your brain it's just too much for it, and then this is how it manifests, the heaviness of it. So, but anyways. going back to the EMDR, so on the session, you go back to you kind of provoke the flashback, unfortunately, but you go back to it. And this is the most terrible thing. But there's a way, so you just do it slowly. Let's say my therapist is asking me, okay, where are you? And I say, I am in 15 minutes, I will go down with him to the basement, but I'm still not yet there. Right now I'm sitting by the table. He just gave me a cup of ayahuasca and I'm just sit there and nothing is happening. So she was tapping my hands while I was going back to this memory. And it took me a year to process this memory. I would meet her every week for an hour and we would just work this way. Or sometimes when I would just feel, it's too much for me, I can't, we would just talk. But it took me a year. When we started, she asked me, how disturbing is the memory? From 0 to 10. Okay, it's okay, 10. In a year after, she asked me, how disturbing is this memory? I'll say 2. So this is the way that you...
Sounds like a miracle.
It is, but it feels also like a miracle. You know what's the most amazing? You go back to a place, to a horrific place. You go back to it and you are in full control. You can press pause. You can go back to this place. I can walk in the basement. I know exactly what is where. And I am there and I press pause. I rewind. I go forward. And I can look very closely to all the details there. But I am in control. And I know that right now I'm on my session. I'm not there. This is, you kind of, thanks to this method, you kind of slowly begin to understand, like your brain gets it, that this is not here and this is not now, because the problem with trauma is that it is here and now. It happened back then, but it is so vivid inside of you that it is here and now. But with this, no. You just get to the place where you feel it's gone. Basically, it's gone. It happened back then. Yes, it was terrible, but now I'm safe. And I am here and now in reality. So that's why it is magical. It's kind of simple also.
Talking about courage, I mean, it's courageous to... I guess there is no other way to process trauma than somehow going back to that. And it takes a lot of courage, I guess, or I experienced it sometimes when I try to address my traumas. Did you feel during that process that you need to be courageous?
I decided that I want to live. And I want to live like a normal, healthy person. And that it's not freaking fair, okay? That I had to go through this garbage. So my motivation was also coming from, I feel really bad that I wasted my life energy, my precious life energy on this person. I feel really angry and I feel really bad about it. So what can I do? I can just commit to making sure that I get better. And then also I'm furious. I'm just really angry. So I guess that there's an aspect of this emotion as well, which plays part in I'm not going to give up. It's like revenge. Because when you are hurt by another person, especially when you realize that this person hurt you purposely, that they knew what they are doing. Because, we all get hurt by other people. Our loved ones hurt us. They sometimes are not aware of it. I figured that I probably was hurt by the person who knew that what he's doing. So there's this anger. There's like huge bubble of deep rage. And I mean, I'm kind of apprehensive. I do hear it. I do hear it often, that it is courageous for me to do the film. I know that your question is a little bit about something else, yes. But I heard it often. I heard it today from somebody who heard about my project. Oh, it's so courageous for you to do this. I don't find it courageous. For me, I just express my rage this way. This is my way of revenging, Maybe I shouldn't be saying that. That's not very Christian, okay? But still, it's like emotion. I kind of purposely said it this way, but this is one of these emotions that the kind of negative emotions we don't allow ourselves to feel.
Well, I guess that trauma doesn't work that way, that you have a trauma and then you forgive the person the other day. Sometimes this is what I guess that this is sometimes I hear from people, mostly men, why you women cannot forgive us finally, why you are so angry and why you're so, feminist angry. And I always answer, these are the stages. Come on, when somebody's hurt, then there is the rage. There is time for rage. There is time for being angry. And then, after some time, the forgiveness can come. But forgiveness is usually not the second step after you got hurt.
Yes, if I may address the forgiveness part, I guess that the most difficult is to forgive yourself, that you allowed yourself. You're going to be with yourself for the rest of your life. You need to have a good relationship with yourself. If somebody hurt you, you hate yourself. You're like, why the heck did you do this to me? Why couldn't you protect me? I mean, I'm speaking about this inner conversation with yourself. Yeah. So this is the most difficult, to forgive yourself and then to forgive the world. I mean, to forgive life. Because right now, you would agree that there's that you have a kind of a relationship with life, right? Like there are moments when you feel that life is treating you well. And then there are moments when you feel like life is not treating you well.
Somebody calls it God, somebody calls it life, somebody calls it universe. But yeah, we are talking about the same entity.
Yeah, the experience of being alive and experiencing the unknown, right? So, I wish that I would just forget about this guy. Because right now I'm so much into the movie. I'm so much into telling this story, into analyzing what happened, into trying to understand what happened. Because I guess that what can you do? I mean, I feel like my duty is to freaking understand it, but I will not forget about it at some point. I don't feel like I'm obliged to forgive him. I don't think it would change anything to the world or to him or to me. I don't know. I mean, this is how I feel it right now. I want to forgive myself and the world and just be a happy person. I don't know. How does this sound?
It sounds like you've got the right to, feel anything you want. Actually, that was my question. When we are asked to forgive anytime anything bad happens to us, if it's really right, I don't think so.
It's not right. It seems very religious.
Yeah.
Like an imposition, like a dogma that you have to forgive. This is bullshit. This sounds like oppression.
Yeah. Were you ever thinking of your film as something activistic, like something with a message which should help other people?
Not really, but I will explain it. I just really want to be myself. And I just want to express myself. And probably, I guess, that through this act, it might resonate with other people. For me, right now, the most important thing, I just feel this urge to say what I want to say, to show my sensitivity, to show how I saw reality and how I see reality right now. I just want to share it. Just that. I don't want to be a preacher and I don't want to be a guru, all right? Because
I guess you don't want to be a guru.
That's why I'm trying to stay as far as possible from that. I know that my character, myself in the movie, she's going to be ridiculous so many times. I know it. And that's why I am not really thinking about it at all. Just trying to simplify the process and the work and everything. I'm just trying to reduce everything to being truthful and honest. I feel that this is what it's needed. This is what I look for in the world. And this is what I want to give.
I usually ask this question our guests, but in the case of your film, I really wonder even more how difficult it is to take other people into the process of making the film. And I'm asking you here in the EDP platform, as your film is part of Ex Oriente workshop, so you chose to share the process of making the film and the process of healing yourself with other people. Was this more helpful, more hard, or both, or anything else?
It is challenging and it is wonderful at the same time, but for different reasons. It is extremely challenging to find a way to talk about yourself in a third person and being yourself at the same time. Extremely, extremely, extremely challenging. Extremely. But these workshops helped me tremendously because I began to find the right language. Also, another thing is that directing is a very lonely journey. And it's fabulous when you can be accompanied by other people who are also in the process or who are there to give you feedback. This is fabulous. And especially when I'm all the time in a soup made from myself, there are moments when I just have so much enough of it that I really need an eye of somebody who's a complete stranger from somewhere else, from a different planet, different country, different perspectives, to tell me what they see when I show them the material, when I tell them about this. Other thing is that all the people that I met here on these workshops have been, from the very beginning, very kind, very attentive, very open, and extremely supportive. So it's very difficult to open yourself up about, intimate and difficult subjects. But at the same time, when you are in an environment, in the right environment, then it becomes therapeutic. It becomes a really energizing experience even. I always feel extremely energized after going back to Poland from these workshops.
My last question is, if you're a magician now and you can talk to all women who are in the same situation you had to go through, what would be the message?
You're not alone. I am myself in the process still. But I guess that also it would be fair to say, trust your own process, like trust yourself, trust the places where your own mind is bringing you.
I am amazed by your path and your project, and I can't wait to see it and to see you again in the next step of this path. And I don't want to sound cliche, but I guess that's what we need these days. To continue, to reflect what happened to us. And if we are able, if we have the tools and if we have the strength, to share. That's what you do. So thank you.
Wow, thank you.
This was a very different episode of True Story Podcast. Thank you, Anetka, to share with us your story. And dear listeners, good night or good morning or good afternoon. Continue your own path and stay with us.
Amen.